And right now it's time for that time when we talk to our special guest. Tonight our special guest is Doris Mousdale. Many of our viewers will be familiar with the voice of Doris. For 30 years, Doris has been the book reviewer with Leighton Smith on News Talk ZB. Be watching tonight as three of our viewers can each win a book from Doris and her bookshop Arcadia in Newmarket. Doris Mousdale, welcome to The Beat Goes On.
Thank you.
Hey, you're on television, not on radio. That's a big difference, isn't it?
It is a big difference.
I've listened to you for year after year after year. Wonderful, wonderful book reviews on 1ZB with Leighton Smith.
Yes, that's right.
And now, you didn't have to put makeup on to go on radio, did you?
No, I didn't put makeup on to come here today, actually.
But it's a whole different world.
It's a whole different world. It is a whole different world.
So, Doris, the love of books. You've got a wonderful store or shop in Newmarket called Arcadia, but long before that happened, you loved books, didn't you? Where did that love of books come from?
From the public library and school, actually. I think once, and this is what's happening nowadays, is that once you can get children reading, you open up a whole world for them. And it was the actual fact of getting a library ticket and going to the library. Every day I went and changed the book, and the librarian used to test me. She used to say, "Have you really read that book? I can't give you a new one." And I'd tell her the story, so I was changing the book every day. So once she knew I was really reading, she let me have 3 tickets, and then I'd have enough to stock up on, and that's the way it goes.
You could read a book a night.
I could read a book a night even as a 7, 8-year-old.
Wow! Now you're not a
Enid Blyton.
You're not a speed reader, but you're just very fast.
I read quickly. I don't skim, but I can read quite quickly.
Comprehension? You can just about answer any question after you've read the book?
Yes, pretty much so, yeah.
What about retaining the memory of a book you read a year ago? Good at that?
If I put my hand on the book, I can have total recall.
Is that true?
From something...
Are you having me on,
No,
Doris?
no, not saying from 40 years ago. As soon as I see the book, I know what the story is about, yes.
Wow.
So hence I don't reread, so.
Superwoman.
Not superwoman, but it's just something I've spent 50 years acquiring that sort of information.
One day, somebody said we need a book reviewer. And how did it happen? Say 1ZB, for instance. How did it come to be that it was Doris Mousdale?
Leighton Smith came into the shop I was working in, Whitcoulls in Queen Street, and he asked me, I was a sales assistant, and he asked me about some books. And I told him, and he said, "You sound as though you know that. Would you come across and make a tape?" And so I went across to Broadcasting House. And
Which wasn't far away, was it?
Just across the road, made a tape. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know who he was. So I made a tape, and then they played it. I didn't hear it. And then the next week he came and did the same thing. And after 2 or 3 weeks, he said, "I don't think we need to make the tape. Just pop into the studio." And so for the last 30 years, I've popped into the studio.
30 years.
And sat facing him and talked about books.
Yeah. Was the rest of the family like that? Was Mum and Dad good speakers? And
my dad was. My mum really, but my father was very sort of personable and would make friends with anybody, yes.
But your vowels, your consonants, and everything's perfect. So
that's quite difficult coming from Liverpool, isn't it?
Yeah, now you're a Liverpudlian.
Absolutely.
Born 1945.
Oh, thank you.
Born 1965. But Liverpool was a shattered city, probably, wasn't it, in 1940?
Yes, definitely. It was. It had been severely damaged by bombs and the war.
So your earliest memories of Liverpool, what can you remember?
Oh, great gaps in the streets where the bombs had actually demolished houses, yes, yeah. And lots of signs of the war, like the emergency water services and things like that. And lots of returning soldiers as well. So,
And you kids would scamper over bomb sites and
absolutely, yes.
And find things, and your parents worried that you might find a live bomb.
There were plenty of those around, yes.
It was a totally different world, wasn't it?
Yes, and
today it'd be so PC that nobody could. You'd have to wear a jacket before you could,
a
yellow jacket.
If your house got bombed, I mean, I wasn't alive during the war, I have to say. But if your house got bombed, you just moved to another house, So. Wow. And people got killed in your street, and you moved. Some people might have moved into their house.
And your family stayed in the street, even though you were born in. You would have had older brothers and sisters.
I've just got one older brother and younger brothers and sisters. But we moved out. We moved out to the suburbs.
But come 1963, 15, you were 17, 18, 19, and you were in Liverpool, and the biggest explosion had happened. The Beatles arrived.
I did see them live. I did see them on the Empire.
Did you ever go to the Cavern?
Yes, we have close associations with the Cavern. My father had his own business. He was a haulage contractor, and he couldn't understand why you wanted to go to an onion warehouse for a night out.
It used to be an onion warehouse.
It was an onion warehouse, and he used to say, I can't understand. And his office was on the corner of Matthew Street in Victoria Street, and he couldn't understand all the fuss, all these teenagers queuing up at lunchtime. You know, if you worked in an office, you went to the Cavern at lunchtime.
Oh, okay, so this is before they became famous. They're in the Cavern.
Yes.
And your father would look out the window.
Out of his office.
And here's this long queue of
blocking his lorries,
blocking
his lorries from getting their work done.
And he'd say, what on earth's going on?
And
but you knew.
We knew, and my brothers knew. My brother actually worked on the door at the Cavern for some time when he was a young man. But yes, it was something that was happening in the city that young people were aware of, and then of course, as everything, the word spread, and everybody got to know.
And so you said, Dad, it's the Beatles.
I can remember him coming in with 2 tickets for me, and I'm thinking, do I really have to go? You know, and it was
what?
It was the Empire, and it would have been 62.
62, yeah.
62, and we went with my friend from next door. You know, and you couldn't hear anything.
Which Beatle did you fancy?
None of them really. If anything, George. George gets my sympathy. My husband was at college with John Lennon. Paul McCartney I've never really liked, and Ringo is Ringo. So
now,
most probably George Harrison is the one I have sympathy.
You went to that concert that day, 1962. Would you have ever believed that you were in a place in history that was going to have a worldwide effect? Would you have even given that a second thought?
Coming from Liverpool, yes, because everybody in Liverpool thinks anything they do is going to be better than anything else. So I'm not just boasting or skiting, but if they are painters or if they're actors, I mean, we have great theatres, we had great art galleries, we have great museums.
But Mum and Dad made a decision to come to New Zealand. Can you remember that?
No, no, I didn't. We came here in the 80s with my husband and the family.
Mum and Dad?
Never came to New Zealand, no.
Okay. You and your husband said, let's go to New Zealand.
No.
Why?
My husband said, let's go to New Zealand, and we said no, but we came with him. He had a job.
Who's we said no?
My children.
Yeah.
So we left 2 children behind. I brought 2 with us.
They didn't want to come?
They were grown up and they'd been through college, and they had a job. One had a job in London, one had a job in Liverpool. And my husband got a job here. It was AIT at the time, then it was ATI, then it was AUT, and it's Auckland University of Technology.
Have you thanked your husband profusely for bringing you to New Zealand yet?
Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. There are nice things about New Zealand, but there are a lot of frustrating things about New Zealand.
What were your first impressions on New Zealand?
Do you really want to know?
Yes, I'd love to know.
Getting off
this
that
is 1980.
plane, 1986, and
86.
getting off the plane, and I went to Farmers in Hobson Street to do some shopping for the house we'd rented, and I thought it was like going to Czechoslovakia. I thought it was like going back to East Europe in the 50s. Wow. It was quite a strange place.
It's changed though, hasn't it, New Zealand?
It has changed. It has changed.
Or have you got used to it?
I think people get used to it, and I think you need to go out of New Zealand to appreciate what's here. And I think a lot of people don't appreciate what's here. But I still think there's lots to do in New Zealand. Lots of things need changing. Yeah.
Now, your bookshop in Newmarket.
Yes.
Wonderful spot. And
thank you.
All the years you've been on 1ZB, you've become famous. Doris, do people come and
They do. They like to talk. They like to talk
Cavern in
books.
1940, 1960.
They talk about books. They like to have recommendations. It's quite galling when they come in and they say, I like that last book. Can I have another one? And you think, what was it? I've served lots of people since then. But no, it's a rapport you build up with your customer, and the customers don't rely on you because they're very smart people, but they just want that thing. It's okay if you want a light read. It's okay to read something light. If you want something funny, it's okay to read something funny. If you want a challenging read, we'll sympathise with you and we'll congratulate you when you read a difficult book.
Have you got to the stage after talking to so many people buying books that you can take one look at them and sort of know what book they'll like?
No, it's like a doctor's. It's like a doctor's surgery. We ask, what have you just read? What do you like reading?
So you can't tell immediately by looking at a person?
No, because people like different things. But you ask them as not a set series of questions, but you ask them a number of questions, whether they want something relaxing, something challenging. Have they got a long time to read? Is it for book club? And by that, you narrow it down. Do they like crime? Do they like human situations? Do they like non-fiction? So by a series of questions, you narrow it down and you offer them 3 or 4 books. If you offer them more than that, they start to get not mixed up, but they give them some time on those 3 or 4 books. Nothing there, come back and offer them another couple.
Now, Doris, the feel of a book. It's wonderful, isn't it?
It is. It's a wonderful invention.
The smell of it. Now,
Yes, they do smell.
A Kindle can't give you that, can it?
A Kindle can't do anything for me. It doesn't do anything for me. I understand what they are.
Yeah.
I think they're a piece of technology you can read on. But I think it's just a gadget, really. It's not. It's not that. That's the invention. Is the book.
People are going to say, and they have said it, that the bookshop and books are finished.
No.
True or untrue?
Absolutely untrue.
Oh, good on you, Doris.
100%
I totally
untrue.
agree with you. This, as I say, there is something wonderful about it.
And all
isn't
those smart people, principals and heads of schools who got rid of their school libraries have done more damage to the intelligence of New Zealand children than they can ever make up for.
No, I didn't know this. Have some schools
Lots of schools came out and boasted that they were going technology. They're getting rid of the school library, turn it into a technology centre, and you downloaded all the books you want. And that was the wrong thing to do. So you've got to have books. You've got to have free school libraries. You've got to have free public libraries. I think anybody should be entitled to go to the library, sit and read a book, any book that they want to. I mean, that's the most wonderful thing that you can do for people.
Now, Doris, if you were on a ship that sunk and you struggled off the ship and you got to shore and you're able to take one author or one book, who would it be? That's what we. After all these years of reading books.
See, that's like saying, which child would you save?
Yes. Which
can't
child
choose.
would you save?
Well, you see, you can't do it. Sometimes people say, what's the best book you've read? And it's either the last book you've just really read and enjoyed or one from way, way back. And I don't have favourite books. I have favourite authors that I've read.
Okay, your top 5.
Favourite authors?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd say Ian McEwan, Edna O'Brien, Christopher Isherwood, going right back. There's, I can
2
get
more. Putting you on the spot here.
Margaret Drabble, most probably. I actually like Lee Child as well. So, but I like a lot of people. But I have Maeve Binchy was one of my favourite authors.
But what about the Pillars of the Earth? Those type of books.
Frederick Forsyth.
Yeah.
Yes, of their time they were good. That's
Wilbur Smith, another.
Smith.
The page turners,
They're changing.
Yeah.
Wilbur Smith's readership isn't gaining any numbers.
No, he's 82 now.
He's 82, 83. He's past his peak, I have to say. You have to admit, he's been writing, he's sold millions and millions and millions of books. He's had a huge time, but his time has almost come. And so his readership's not growing, but he has a good, strong following of fans.
Yeah.
What we have to do in the book trade is introduce new authors to readers. So you say, you like Wilbur Smith, but you're going to like this. You might like Tony Park, who writes about South Africa. He's Australian. He goes there to South Africa 6 months of the year.
Tom Clancy, for
Tom
instance.
Clancy.
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
you wouldn't sell a Tom Clancy now, but if you want somebody with a techno
Yeah.
bent on writing about airplanes and warfare, you introduce them to somebody else. Robert Ludlum is somebody else who's gone, you see. So there is a great deal of change.
The changing of the guard.
It is the changing, and it's a continual change, and it's almost seamless. You don't notice it.
Yeah.
So Wilbur Smith's not going to stop selling. The libraries are still going to buy 50, 60 copies each library, and there's always going to be a waiting list for him.
There's always a Gerard Smith wanting to read a Wilbur Smith.
Absolutely. At one time, boys used to read their fathers, when they were writing about the Courtneys in South Africa. They were huge followings of Wilbur Smith, but it's sort of
Fades.
moved on. We've had Scandinavian crime since then. We've had all sorts of things. And so the market has changed.
Now, Doris, what about being really fantastic to our viewers? We'll give 3 books away, shall we?
Yes, we shall.
Now, there are going to be 3 books of your choice.
I'll do this as a lucky dip. I'll send you 3 books and you
Yeah.
can decide who you're going to give them.
Okay. So we're going to ask our viewers to email Gerard at thebiggoeson.co.nz and we need a highly intelligent question so they can qualify, so which they put in the subject line. So I reckon the what is the name of your shop in Newmarket?
Yes, that would be a good one.
Yes, because thank you, Doris, for coming in today. You're a busy woman. You've got 1ZB. You're everywhere, aren't you? And you come into The Beat Goes On. And,
it's my pleasure.
Yeah, tonight on The Beat Goes On. So a big, big, big thanks to you. The bookshop is called Acadia. It's in Newmarket. And Doris is there most of the time, 90%?
I am. Not 90%, most probably
80%.
74%.
You don't have long lunches where you're away?
No, absolutely. Long lunches are a thing of the past. No. I don't think anybody has long lunches.
Does anybody have a long lunch?
No, there's no 3-hour lunches anymore.
They were great, weren't they? The 1980s.
They were splendid.
Yeah.
I can remember going in at 12 o'clock and wondering where my car was at 4:30. And it was on the front of the Regent.
Yeah, well, I've got some terrible stories like that too. I think we had a lunch start at 12 o'clock. I think we left there at 11 o'clock one night. So,
Valet parked for you.
Yeah. All those days are gone, aren't they?
They have. It's totally changed. The business has changed.
Yeah.
How Queen Street's changed totally. The city's changed itself. It's a different place. And
could you? I know we're running out of time, but you've got your own bookshop now. You're your own boss, and you. Could you go back to being a sales assistant at Whitcoulls?
Absolutely. No, well, not necessarily just at Whitcoulls. I just think the idea of opening a box of books and looking at them for the first time and wondering who's going to buy them, that's not a job. That's it's a calling, but it's also a great pleasure to do.
Doris, you're wonderful.
Thank you.
We're going to see you more.
Hopefully.
This channel called Face TV, we need a book show. And we're going to ask you for some advice in the future, okay? I think we need a book show.
I might be able to stick my oar in.
Okay, thanks, Doris.
Cheers.
See you next time. Bye.